Welcome to the Little Wins podcast, where school leaders share their little wins that build strong culture, with your host, Karen Borchert. Welcome back to Little Wins, where we meet school and district leaders and talk about the everyday things that they do to foster an incredible culture and connection in their schools. I'm your host, Karen Borchert, and today's guest is Dr. Jeremy Davidson, Superintendent of Elsberry R2 School District in Elsberry, Missouri. Jeremy brings a thoughtful and steady approach to leadership grounded in relationships, visibility, and a belief in long-term impact. He leads with clarity and also with care, and his work reminds us that district-level leadership isn't just about strategy. It's about the people you support and the culture you shape, one decision at a time. Welcome to the show, Jeremy.
Hey, how are you? Good. I'm glad to be on here, Karen. I really appreciate you having me.
Great to have you on today. Thank you so much. You have such some really fun and unique approaches to your district and the way you do things within the district. So I'm excited to have you on today. Tell us a little bit about take us to Elsberry R2 School District and tell us a little bit about the district.
All right, we're a little small class 2 school. We got 5 classes in the state of Missouri. We're a class 2, so we're small. We have about 835, 36 kids district wide. That would be from pre-K through 12th grade, and so we're a rural school. We've set, I guess, be west of St. Louis, and again, we northwest of St. Louis. We're about probably about an hour and a half to get down to downtown St. Louis. So the town itself sits probably about 2 to 3,000 people. So pretty small. We're kind of a river town. So we got a lot of cool things going on in this small town. Great place to eat, by the way, too. Several good places. Great little school district here that does well in our performance reports and keeping our retention of our teachers here. And so we're pretty proud of what we have here in Elsberry.
Very, very cool. Well, one of my very favorite things that I learned about you early on is that you all have a very different, interesting approach to your school week and your school work week. Is that correct?
Yeah, we do. We run a 4-day school week here. We want to make sure that the state allows it, and so we max out the hours. What allowances of that? You're required 1044. We actually run 1099, so we're over that, and we do that with purpose. We know that the research shows that any school that stays above those 1044 or higher, your student achievement doesn't decrease, and so we really love our 4-day school week here. We have off on Mondays. Our staff do. We do have a few custodians that come in during that time to really kind of give a deep cleaning. But other than that, everyone else is off during that time. I try to get in here on Mondays, kind of a quiet time for me.
Yeah.
And that's not the case all the time, but I do try to get in most Mondays.
That's so cool. I love this model. Just I think it's so interesting, just in the way that the kind of ripple effects that it potentially has, both with students and I think as far as like how you think about it from a workplace perspective. Can you talk about a little bit about both of those things? Can you tell us a little bit about what do you think are the impacts of that 4-day week on your students, and what do you think are the impacts on your staff?
Yeah, absolutely. They kind of go hand in hand, honestly. If you hear the kids talk and hear the teachers talk, they all talk about, you know, COVID kind of threw a shift in education. You've seen a lot more of the mental health coming to the forefront. And we see that both in the staff and the students. And so it's kind of spotlighted that with the 4-day school week. I think it's given a little bit of relief to both those areas for both our students and our staff. Our kids, I have kids in the district myself. I have 3 kids, and I hear them talk about along with other students that they don't feel so rushed to get their work and the homework done and things like that. They have a little bit of reprieve on that Sunday. We might have a busy weekend with sports and activities like a lot of families do in the area, but they have that Sunday after we get done with church. They come home and kind of crank down and get some things done. If they don't quite get it all done, they know they have Monday if they're maybe stressing on something or they need to get a hold of of another student to help support them. Then they have that Monday to get some things done as well. And so they really appreciate that side. In fact, my kids tell me all the time I would never want to go back to a 5-day school week, Dad. And so I hear that from our students as well on a regular
Really?
basis. Yeah, I think a big part of it too is just that mental health piece.
Mhm.
We kind of talked briefly, but the idea of bullying in this school is very small, but in a lot of schools, we're not the only school using the 4-day school week. There's quite a few across our state, and we have a tendency to believe that that Monday off can be a detriment to kids because they may have a bad home life. I always tell people all the time because kids are born in poverty doesn't make them have a bad home life. Abuse is a bad home life, but poverty in itself is not. People function well and they prosper there. With that being said, though, bullying across the nation is really kind of an issue with our students. And so it gives them one less day of reprieve. It gives them one less day to have to be around those kids that are being hateful and mean to them. And so I've heard that from the multiple kids. across the board. And in my research, I did over the 4-day school week as well. And so, from a teacher standpoint, I think they'll say the same. It's a little bit less time they have to be stressed about trying to get grades in and grade books. We require once a week grades to be put in, and so it gives them that day to get those extra things done. But it also gives them an opportunity, which I think is great, to get into doctors. Uh, you go to call a doctor, get in and have their doctor's visits during that time, their kids visit during that time, and it's really one more day they get to spend with their family. We don't. I think the family value matters, and we really kind of foster that here with that 4-day school week.
That's super, super interesting. Now, you mentioned that your research is in was on this as part of your doctoral program. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Tell us a little bit more about that research and about that work.
You betcha. And so when I started my doctoral work, several years back, I got my degree a couple years ago, but I was really interested in the 4-day school week because it seemed to be a little bit tarnished by some of the people a little bit higher than I am in the state. And so I really was digging into it because I know in other states they've been using it successfully in Idaho and different places like Hawaii and things, and it's been used very successfully. And so I was very interested in it. So I started engaging in it. What I found was the whole thing about the bullying component, the culture shift and the idea that we have more time. Now you have the side where teachers have to really fine tune, which I think has been good. Also, they have to fine tune their instruction and what's important as far as curriculum. They have to really fine tune that to really get down to the best priority standards of which ones are the ones that are most needed for our kids to succeed on our state testing. And so it's really fine tune that. It's given teachers more time. It's given our students more time. It's built that a little bit of relief in that mental health standpoint. I found that in my research as well. When I interviewed teachers, I interviewed custodial staff, bus drivers, and students who had just graduated, and they all kind of spoke about the same kind of thing. And really, that big impact was on the mental health side of things.
That's so interesting. You hear when you hear talk about school culture, schools with great cultures, districts with great cultures, you so often hear that need around time, right? Around like the importance of like principals and district leadership who find the way to give teachers back time. There's all kinds of like AI tools that promise giving teachers back time and like all of those things. But you guys are really and truly protecting time for your teachers in this really specific way. Do you ever have teachers who then feel like the 4-day work week is like is it a hard adjustment if you're coming from a 5 to a 4 to make sure that you're getting in all of the instruction during that time that you are, or like it's a longer day, I assume, than a typical 5-day week. Is that ever an adjustment for your teachers that they have to kind of figure out?
Yeah, I think that's a little bit of adjustment. I think the key anytime you do that, anytime you have people coming in that's new, that you're connecting with the right people to make sure that they got the right story when they come into your school district. And so that piece is super important. And I lean on my principals. My principal's been here. My least principal's been here for not going on 10 years. My principal's been here long as going on 29. So we have longevity in our district for administrators.
Yeah.
My third principal's been here for 25 years, and so they understand the community, they understand the background, and they know how to connect our teachers to the right folks to help them and support them along the way. And we work with our RPDC, our regional professional development centers. We work with our Ed Plus council. They do a lot of that collaboration piece for us as well to help support our teachers. There's some standards there we expect when they come in, and so our hiring process is important. We do that as a leadership component too to make sure we're getting the right fit for our staff around that 4-day. And that is a conversation 4-day because it isn't a little bit of an adjustment period.
Yeah, I bet, I bet. Well, outside of the work week, tell us a little bit about your district or about your school, various schools, kind of school culture. What's it like? What kind of culture do you try to really put forth for the district, and how do you think about that?
I really look at the idea of respect, high expectations, and collaboration. I think is what unify a school district around the idea of student first decision making. And so we spend time in our leadership meetings having those discussions around how are we making sure we're reaching our students and our staff, and how are we reaching our students through our staff, and how do we make sure we're holding our staff accountable to the expectations we have from a school board standpoint as well, and within our CSIP, which is our school improvement plan, to make sure we're on task and following that as well to support our students' learning. And so, I mean, if you're going to ask me like, what do I see in that? The values of our admin trickle right down into our staff, and our staff values, and that trickles right down to our students as well. And so we're always being present. being available. I always tell my staff, I understand it's easy to get on there and respond to a parent or an admin to a teacher with an email, but I'll say the most important piece, the best way to do that is making a phone call. Just that
Make a phone call.
personal connection matters. It makes a big difference, and that's something we're really striving for as we worked through last year, that we got a 24-hour window to call parents back. I just think it's that important.
Oh, wow. Okay. So you guys kind of have an arrangement among all your staff that if you've got a parent calling, that parent gets a call back from you within 24 hours. Is that
That
right?
that 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 is what we strive for, absolutely.
That's cool. That's a simple strategy. That's great. You mentioned at the top there, you said respect, high expectations, and what was the third one?
Collaboration
Collaboration.
and having
Okay.
a student-first decision-making mindset.
Mhm. Mhm. Okay. Okay. Tell me a little bit about how that plays out in your buildings. What does a student first decision making mindset look like at the building level?
That's a good question. So each building, so this is kind of a unique setup here. We have one building that houses um, all grade levels. So we have a
Okay.
elementary hallway, we have a middle school hallway, we have a high school hallway, and so it's very unique. And you have an ag building that kind of sets a little bit separated by that. So they all run their own buildings, but they're all part of we're all connected here. We see each other on a regular basis through lunches
Yeah.
and cafeteria, things like that. And so I think the big piece of that is just making sure that we're having conversations, that we're all on the same page, and we're all going the same direction, and we're all rowing the boat the same way, that we're not one of us want to do this and one of us want to do that. We talk through things. We
Right.
talk about things that each building has the ability to make on their own. This is an open-ended conversation, and we talk about things that are close-fisted, things that we're going to stand by as a staff and a staff that we make those decisions, and we have to move forward with those, knowing we're making the best for kids in mind. And so we wanna make sure we're having clear expectations. We don't wanna have fatigue with our teachers and our students. We wanna make sure we're in the hallways, and then we're not just in the hallways, we're actually in the hallways. We're talking to our kids, and we're talking to our staff, and we're working side by side, our teachers and our kiddos. But I always take it further than that, to be honest with you. I go in the cafeteria, and I clean tables as a superintendent, I sweep floors as a superintendent. My dad always told me, "You better be able to do the job that everybody that's working underneath you can do, because if you can't, you're not gonna be a very good leader." And so I try to make sure we're instilling that on our admin, down to our teachers, down to our kids as well.
That's great. Such a great example to set not only for your staff but for your students as well. What do you see? How do you see that play out with your relationships with your staff? I imagine that when the superintendent's willing to wipe down the tables in the cafeteria, I imagine that really has an effect with your teams. What do you see from that kind of sort of modeling that behavior?
I think it kinda shifts their priorities a little bit, that I
Mm.
know notice that more and more will help out do things as well. And then so it's just that kinda that top-down, windfall. You don't wanna be a top-down leader telling everybody they have to do this, they have to do that. I think you wanna show it through your actions. And so when you start doing those little things, other people start stepping up and doing those things as well, which I always find really fascinating to see how the human mind works. And
Yeah.
so that's the biggest thing I've seen, is that, when I get out there and I'm willing to put the time and effort in, they're willing to put the time and effort in right along with me.
Yeah, yeah. That's great. So you've got this kind of unique, kind of specific culture around kind of respect, high expectations, collaboration, student first decision making. And you've got this kind of alternate schedule that somebody maybe coming into the district may not know. Tell me a little bit about onboarding for new staff, or for when you've got new teachers coming in. I know you said you have a lot of longevity, so but if you've got new staff coming in to your district, how do you get them up to speed on this, kind of unique model you guys have?
Absolutely. And so actually this Friday, sorry, is gonna be the day we do that. We actually had a day where we'll spend the entire day, all new staff, whether new teachers are new to our district, they come in, we spend an entire day with them, walking them through everything from how to run the copiers all the way down to what's expected from classroom instruction. We connect them with their mentors and their mentees, or their buddy teachers, and get them connected. We take them out to lunch in a real nice place here in town, making sure they're getting that side of it too. Their needs are being fulfilled as well. And we give them an opportunity to ask us questions after we go through some stuff. We give them opportunities to connect with other teachers through some PD that we do with them as well. And so we actually bring a young lady in to help with some of that too. So we use a little bit of outsourced help with that and support, along with our internal staff as well. When I say outsource, the lady we use has been here for a long time doing that
Yeah.
support with us as well, working with new teachers. That's really kind of her specialty, coming into to communities. And so I think we do a really solid job with that 8-hour window we have with them. And then next week they'll be here with all of the teachers, and everybody will be back, and that's when they'll really get to start digging in as well.
That's great. Tell me more about the mentor. You mentioned mentor mentees and buddy teachers. Tell me a little bit more about that program.
Yep, we connect all of our brand new teachers with a mentor. They're with it. They stay with them for 3 years. Anybody that's new, that's got more than 5 years experience, they connect with a buddy teacher, and they're with them until we see fit that they maybe don't need more. They tell us, "Hey, they feel like they're good to go." And so, just having someone they can relate to and connect to, I think matters, and that's what our focus is, and make sure we don't just do it for a one-year deal and we leave them hanging the next year. It's the little things. It takes you a couple years to get acquainted with everything in a school system, and so we wanna make able to have someone by their side over the next couple years as well.
I love that. I you hear a lot about induction programs that are a year long that are, for new teachers that are coming in. I love that yours is 3. I think that's such a, what do you see happen in that second and third year, that you don't see happen in the first year?
Well, on the good thing about this, we see a lot less questions come down, and I will say we're one so that kind of filters itself out, which is great. We see those teachers starting to connect with other teachers. We always tell them you gotta have a best friend at the school, and so how helping them can find that best friend is important. One of the things we do too throughout the first couple of years is we bring in, the same lady that starts the year out, we bring her in. This year, we're transitioned over to one of our administrators, and he actually gets into the classrooms with those first-year teachers, to our district a multitude of times and makes that a priority piece, not in an evaluative way, actually in a growth way. So we're not even looking at evaluation things going, "Hey, this is what you did wrong." We're looking at,
Right.
"Hey, these things are great. Let's continue to push that. Let me give you some more ideas and thoughts on some things as well so we can move in the right direction with those types of things." And so that is an all year long process. You'll get into all those classrooms throughout the year as well, a multitude of times to make sure that we're being a part of that. And then we also have our teachers that do some walkthroughs with in other classrooms as well from teachers that have been here for a long time. Eventually, they can pick their ideas, get ideas from what they're seeing in the classroom. They can collaborate with people they're not used to talking to, and just trying to kind of stretch them across the board.
Oh, that's cool. Okay, so hold on. Let me go back to that one. Just a minute to that idea. You have teachers that go to other classrooms to just to learn from that from another teacher. Are they the same grade level? How often do they do that?
Well, peer to peer, we ask them to do it a couple times throughout the year so they can actually learn to grow, and it's really
Cool.
look for their benefit. And so, just to see, a lot of new teachers come into the field of education, and sometimes veteran teachers, the biggest shift they have, honestly, is everybody thinks it's teaching in itself, but really it's not. It's the classroom management side, and that's what they struggle with the most is coming into a new school, coming in the field of education in general, is that getting that classroom under control and understanding how that classroom functions and learns, and how does having process and protocols in place make my classroom a viable place that's functioning for kids.
Yeah, yeah. This is a very practical, tactical question, but people always want to know these kinds of things on this, which is how, if a teacher is going to another classroom to do that observation once or, a couple times, when they go and they do that, who takes their class?
We have teachers to fill in for them, or we have them go on their plan.
Filling.
Yep, and oftentimes they go in on their personal plan period too.
Oh, okay, okay, okay.
That's what happens most time is their personal plan period. They just take that time, go in there on your plan period. It's your time to go in there and kind of reflect on things.
Very cool. Very cool. What do you hear? Do you hear teachers kind of come out of those things with kind of different ideas, different appreciation for their peers? I can see a multitude of benefits here. What do you hear the most come out of those sessions?
The ones coming out of session are definitely the idea that they've been able to be a reflection that helps them see some of the strategies they may be lacking in their classroom, some ideas and support maybe on how to build a better assessment. And maybe it's how do I even collaborate with my kids in a better way? Maybe some small groups, some circles, some homework tables, things like that, that they walk out and going, okay, I hadn't seen that before. So I got a new strategy I can put in my bag to have for later on to use down the road too as well. And so, yeah, the biggest thing we're trying to get them to see is that that practical use of some of those things like your bell ringers. You're coming into the classroom ready to work and ready to listen. Do we have a process in place for kids identifying some of their goals and some of their targets or their rules for the classroom? We wanna make sure kids are being a part of that. We just don't tell them what we think they need to be.
Right, right. Okay. That's really neat. I love both that mentoring program and then that observation program just for building strength and trust within a team. Just to be able to say, I trust you to come in and watch my classroom during your plan period and that's a little bit vulnerable I imagine for the teacher that's being observed. But I bet creates a higher level of trust between your teachers as well. Do you see that being the case?
Oh, absolutely. So, and I think it's super important when you're talking to new teachers or any teacher going to another teacher's classroom, they need to understand that there may be something there you go, well, I didn't necessarily agree with that. That's not what we're looking for. So we're not going to do that. And we're not certainly not going to go out and breach confidence of a teacher and be hateful or talk about a teacher. That's not what we're going to do. And so what we're there is to pretty focus on and learn. And that's super important. Trying to make sure we find that balance and that grace when we go into classrooms to learn from each other.
Excellent, excellent. That's really cool. I love that. Tell me a little bit. We're coming right into the beginning of a new school year here, and tell me a little bit about kind of your goals as far as your team or culture within the district this year.
Good, that's awesome. When I come back here, coming back in the fall here, I'm gonna be talking a lot about in my first day back when I do my opening, kind of a little talk I do. Where we're talking about the why, like not forgetting your why, remembering your why, and not just to have the why, but to write that why down and go back to it and look at that on that flashcard, and so you can go back and you realize there's gonna be tough days. There's gonna be days you're gonna feel like I don't want to be here. It's part of this field, and people don't really understand that education's a different animal than any other career field. And there's just days where you feel bogged down and wore out and you're tired and you're like, I don't know if I can press on. I tell new teachers all the time, there's a point in your career where you're gonna feel like you hit this implementation dip.
Yeah,
Especially your first year, and you're gonna be like, when you hit that dip, you've got to make sure you're asking questions and getting supports and not just sitting in the corner by yourself. You need to make sure you're reaching out to someone because you can get out of it quicker if you get supports around you. But if you choose to not do that, you will struggle. And so my message is reminding them of their why and getting back to their why and building this year's gonna be a big focus on, building, our collaboration up and building our culture up again and reestablishing what we believe is a solid culture, in our district. So I'm starting this year out with the steering committee. We're gonna talk about school finance. We're talking about CSIP plan. This is beyond our school board. This is teachers coming together to have conversation around the most, biggest priorities in our district and giving them a voice in that a steering committee hasn't been used here, but it's gonna be now.
very cool. Hold on. So you're putting together for the first time this year a steering committee of teachers.
Yeah, I think probably a superintendent years ago, years beyond years ago, 15, 20 years ago, may have used a steering committee, but I just feel like it's important. I've used it in my building as a principal, and I just think it's important as a superintendent after that, get kind of that feeling of that first year, and I think that having that steering committee is gonna help prioritize some things with our staff. I think it's important.
That's very cool. I love that. I love that avenue for teacher voice coming into play. So you mentioned you'll have teachers weighing in on district finance things, district kind of initiatives and strategies. That's somewhat unique, right? You don't always hear teachers kind of involved or at the table for those kind of discussions. How do you choose who goes on the steering committee?
And so I actually started choosing last year at the end of the year. I asked my leadership to come up, just kinda throw it out there if anybody would be willing to sit in on these, meetings, and so I did. There's some I put on there because they're part of finance stuff, like my sped director, my principals, obviously, my transportation director, my, maintenance director. I put all those guys on there because 'cause they're part of the finance piece, and then the other ones they're self-selected. We open up the opportunity, and they put themselves on there. So we got about 20 people that'll be sitting on this committee, and we'll meet, right before our board meetings every month, and we'll just start discussing. We start in October with it.
Very cool. Very, very cool. Well, we kind of jumped right into kind of what's going on with your district, but you obviously have a really special approach to leadership overall. Will you tell us a little bit about kind of your story, how your why a little bit, how you got into education and how'd you get into educational leadership?
Well, that's a great story. Yeah, I appreciate you asking that, honestly. I am a first generation college student.
Wow.
I grew up in a pretty rough background some back noise. I was suspended quite a bit in middle school, and I didn't have a whole lot of direction going on. I was hanging around a lot of the wrong kids, I would say, and,
Okay.
I kinda found my why, through baseball, if the truth be known. It kinda became my outlet to get me where I wanted to go, and so I played baseball at a JUCO in Iowa and then transferred over to Western Illinois, and just I didn't stay playing the whole time at Western, but it got me where I needed to see that I could do better than where I was at, and it kinda opened my eyes to believe that, I can make a difference, and I actually originally started out not in field of education because honestly, I would never would have thought I'd be doing what I'm doing because I never liked education. I didn't see the value of I didn't like school at all. This wasn't for me. And I was over at Western and actually was looking at being like physical therapy. And I was in a kind of starting a program and I started meeting with a professor over there. And he's like, "Man, you're a teacher." I'm like, "I'm not a teacher." He's like, "Yes, you are. You're a teacher and a coach. I've seen you do some things, some of our special needs adults that I've not seen anyone be able to do. And I'm just telling you, you're a teacher." And he talked me to get into the PE program at Western Illinois, and then it's all kinda goes down from there. I got my degree in yeah, and then I ended up getting my, kind of a endorsement in social studies. I ended up teaching social studies in a town called Raytown, Missouri, a city school. Absolutely loved there, spent 5 years there working with city kids, working in the Kansas City Renaissance program, really building, what I feel is maybe who I am today, the value of relationships. And I truly believe that I could build a relationship with any kid, based on the experiences I've gotten to have over the years, and that's truly my strength as an admin is connection with our students. I mean, I walk down the hallways, I give fives now. I mean, and that's my passion because I realize that, um, the impact I have, I wish someone would have had that same impact on me. Unfortunately, I can say this, and I'm not saying it. I've never, Karen, you hear people say, I always had that one teacher that made a difference in my life. I can see you, and it's unfortunate I never had that teacher. Uh,
Yeah.
and it's a shame. I unfortunately
It
did.
it may be your professor at the junior college who told you these are a
Yeah,
teacher.
I had baseball, a summer baseball coach, a couple of them that I really leaned into to kinda get
Yeah.
that direction too. My mom and dad, even though they didn't have the college background, they're the most supportive people around, and they love me, and they show me that care and that love. And I just realized I wanted something different for myself, and I was gonna work my rear end off to get there.
That's an incredible story. Thank you for sharing it with us. How do you think that your, background and your upbringing, not liking school, not really being, a person who saw themselves, as a teacher, as a principal, as a superintendent, how do you think that changes how you lead today?
Oh, I think it changed a lot. It gives you a lot more empathetic heart for kids and realizing that, we only know what we know. And so when kids come from tough backgrounds, they only know what they know. And so then it becomes me as an admin or a teacher to be able to help guide them and help them see that they can become something bigger than they thought they could. And so really, talking about that why that I talked about earlier is that, the intent is not only do I have a why as a teacher, as an admin, but help our kids. How do our kids begin to identify their why and what's their purpose in
Mm,
this life? And how do we help them get there? And sometimes it's bigger than academia. It's getting to know our kids on a personal level so we can enrich their lives to move them in the right academics or the right direction, whether it be a 4 year school or technical school, or you're simply ready for the workforce. Each one of those have their role, and they're equally important. And the most important piece is that our kids know that they have their why and they figure that out as they go through life.
yeah. Oh, that's incredible. I can only imagine that as a leader, you see the kid who, isn't connecting with school in a really different way than, a leader who may have, grown up being like, the bell ringer, the one right at the beginning of class, like you said. I imagine that it gives you a different perspective than
Absolutely.
a lot of leaders have. That's really, really cool. What's a leadership goal you have for yourself this year?
I think this year is to continue to be, it came in last year. I'm kind of listening to hearing things. Just continue to be visible. Continue to be in the hallways, to be in the classrooms even more this year. To give opportunities for teachers if they have questions to come open door policy with them. I've had that. One of the things I'm gonna look at too is being able to start having this idea of at least a monthly kind of a starlight teacher a month, and kind of doing some things that are kind of slowly weeding in some of those things that build culture, and being a part of those conversation pieces and doing some things different at the end of the year when we recognize 5 year and 10 year. I want to make that more of a little bit bigger deal than what it has been. I want to make sure that people know this is big stuff, and we want to make sure we recognize these people sticking around.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. What did you do last year for that?
So I just kinda do what they did in the past. They've always just they've kinda a little bit of a recognition at the end where they take pictures and things, and, they'll have people come in for retirement and those nights. But I would like to up the ante on it and really put some more pieces to that and make them feel like this is something really special. We do some meals and stuff, so they do some good things, but I think we can add some things with as I meet with my admin throughout the years. There's some things we might be able to add to make that even a little bit better, process, or a little bit, a nicer process for those that are excellent in our district, or those who are been here for quite some time. We want to make sure we're giving them recognition. They do a good job here with it, but
Yeah.
I think there's always things that we can make things a little bit better.
Cool. Love that. I love the kind of focus on continuous improvement. That's an exciting thing to see. And especially when you're talking about, 5 and 10-year, teachers and educators in the buildings, this is a tough time for, educator retention, right? So, celebrating it when it's there is so important. That's wonderful. Well, I this you've so much good advice and so many great things to share. We always end with 3 different questions, our 3 main questions. Are you ready for them?
Sure.
Okay, here we go. The first one is, what are the 3 words that you want to define your district's culture?
I would say purposeful, collaborative, and student-centered.
Okay, purposeful, collaborative, and student-centered.
You bet.
Tell us a little bit more about kind of why those 3 words come together for you.
I think the idea of just having a purpose, again, it goes back to I'm a big person on the why, knowing your why, knowing that it takes one more day to get better every day is fine. Really define that purpose as a teacher, define that purpose as admin, and really helping our kids define that purpose and who they are. And so that doesn't happen though if we don't have the collaboration piece put in place where we can collaborate, we can talk, we don't just have to agree. We can agree to disagree, but we can walk through those tough conversations in an appropriate way. So we do build that collaboration piece that's necessary for our kids to be successful down the road. Then finally, the whole reason we're here is that we're focused on our students and really improving our students and growing our students to become young adults. As they transition from elementary to middle school and high school, to be ready to work, to be ready to go to college, to be able to go to technical school,
Yeah.
wherever their desire is, as we guide them and kind of help direct them and see their strengths and their weaknesses and go, yeah, that may not be for you, but this I see this in you that's something you might not know you have. Here's a strength that might carry you a long ways, and I see this in you, this leadership quality that you didn't know you have, that I've seen in you or that someone's seen in you. We want to push you in that direction.
Very, very, very cool. I love that. Love that, and I love just it takes one more day to get better every day is great. I love that. Okay, what is the second question? What is one little win that you've had at work lately?
I think a little win is going back to that steering committee and knowing that's something that hasn't been around for a long time, and it's something that's necessary to really move this district in the right direction. I had a veteran teacher tell me when she heard I was doing that she feels like that we're all beginning to row in the same direction, and I think that's super important to kind of capture that intentional piece behind that and helping to align the work we want to do.
That is great. Congratulations. What a wonderful bit of feedback to hear even already on that. That's really cool. That's great. And then the last one is, we always say around here that school culture is everyone's job, right? It's not just the job of leadership. So, what do you believe any educator could do to improve their school culture right now?
Right now, greeting kids, I'm passionate about high fives, fist bumps, and elbow bumps. They make a difference. There's a lot of research on sports teams, NFL team, and Major League Baseball teams, and those teams that win championships, they give a ridiculous amount of fives, and there's a power in a high five. And so, crazy enough, I will tell kids that are having bad days to get up in the morning, look in the mirror, and actually tell yourself, I'm fearfully and I'm wonderfully made, and give yourself a high five and let yourself know that you're important, you matter today. And so, when our teachers do that in the hallway, the first thing they see a kid, good morning, how are you, high five, fist bump, it's a game changer. It makes a kid feel like they're important, and they are important, and they should be important to anyone that walks in these doors. And so, that's the one thing I would tell any teacher coming in the field, man. Do not be scared to give a kid a high five or a fist bump. They need it every single day.
That 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 is awesome. That is a great piece of advice, and it is a great little win. I mean, that is free. It is, every single person can do it. It's meaningful to every person that you come across. You can do that with your staff. You can do that with your kids. That's a excellent piece of advice. Uh, well, Dr. Davidson, we have learned so much today. Everything from that making a phone call home within 24 hours instead of sending the email, to the mentor and mentee program and buddy teacher program for 3 years, to helping your teachers find a best friend at school, all the way to just making sure you stay up on those high fives every day. I wish I could give you a high five right now.
Right on. We can't really high five, air five.
All right, here we go. High five. Thank you so much for being on the show and wishing you a great
Really.
year ahead.
I appreciate you, Karen. Thanks for having me.
Have a little win? We'd love to hear from you. Learn how we help schools build strong culture at getalpaca.com.